Welcome to From Trauma to Triumph. I am your host, Jessie Lane Powell, and I am so excited that you have tuned in. The goal for this podcast is to help find answers for people who have gone through or are going through trauma, emotionally as well as physically. First, I want to say you are not crazy. You are not losing your mind if you're feeling things that are going off in you. I am a trauma survivor and I am living my best life because I continue to do the work to address the triggers that trauma brings. I personally have created an inner circle of people that surround me that I trust, that have my best interest at heart. I have a therapist, prayer partner, life coach, and I will soon have another person added to my circle who is my guest that we're going to be talking about and with today. The key to healing emotional and physical trauma is surrounding yourself with knowledge that you can apply and use. What you're feeling is real. Let me say that again. What you are feeling is real. I want to validate that, okay? Trauma alters your life. But my goal is to address trauma head on during this podcast. Trauma can be emotional, it can be physical, from severe pain, discomfort. They are both very valid. Our goal here, from trauma to triumph, is to throw out a lifeline by sharing stories that may be similar and stories that may be different, that may be unique in their own right, but they're all valid. And we want to shine a big, huge light on mental health by bringing on experts to this podcast to join me in this very, very safe space. There's no judgment here. We are making a difference in the lives of everyday people, you and me, who are struggling and they need to be fixed. They need to be whole. In this month's podcast, episode 7, we are going to talk about how to heal from trauma physically and emotionally. The question to ask is, can it really be done? Can you really be healed from trauma, whether it's physical or it's on an emotional level? 1 hour, this 1 hour is definitely not long enough to cover this topic, believe me, but at least it is going to jumpstart the conversation for you to start taking action. From Trauma to Triumph content is for informational and educational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice or consultation with healthcare professionals and should not be taken as professional medical advice. Okay, let's talk about why we're here and our guest today. A few weeks back, I was on Facebook and I came across a very interesting post that had an announcement about Megan and Anton, who are my guests today. It was an announcement about their engagement. And when I was looking at their official photo, their engagement photo, I was struck by it because there was obviously a lot of love between these two people. And there was so much peace that was captured in that photo, so much rest. And you can usually target that when you see something, and I did. I did not know them from Adam. They were not my Facebook friends, but they popped up on my page. And beneath the announcement was a link that took me to Anton's blog, where Megan had written an entry that just really jumped off the pages to me. Megan was very authentic in sharing her journey through trauma. She was really fearlessly exposing the most vulnerable, deep parts of herself. And it truly, truly moved me. And I had to settle with this thing for a minute before actually deciding if it was meant for me to make contact with them or not. The one thing I want to do on this podcast is I want to be led by who's supposed to be on here and not just jump. So I settled with it rested with it for about a week until I came out of yoga and it popped up again. So to me, that was confirmation that we were supposed to definitely connect. So I immediately reached out. I think I responded to the blog, and I sent a message and I said, well, and then Anton was on it. He contacted me immediately. I said, this must be a God thing, you know? So, yeah, it really moved me. So I want you to know what the blog is because I want you to go and check it out because it's going to really help you to be a lot more honest with yourself too. It's Unraveling Trauma, Finding Peace from Within, and God knows we need peace. Finding peace from within. So much is going on today in the universe, and I take a deep breath when I say that because it can be somewhat overwhelming at times. But Megan shared her journey through trauma and her mental health struggle, as well as a method that she began using shortly after meeting her fiance, Anton. I'm getting your name confused. Anton. And it was introduced on their second date. And it was a process they went through to get to what really started bringing about a transformation in Megan's life. So I want to welcome Megan and I want to welcome Anton. It is a blessing to have you both in this safe space. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hear you loud and clear. Awesome. Yes.
Great. I'm doing great as well. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, thank you guys for accepting. I mean, this means more than you know because From Trauma to Triumph is all about helping people find answers to not feeling good. And if you're not feeling good, to me, that's some type of trauma that's going on inside of you that needs to be addressed. So, our topic for episode 7 is how to physically and emotionally heal trauma. How to physically and emotionally heal trauma. This topic excites me because it's going to give our listeners tools to help others navigate through this stream and help people identify with what is going on in their mind, in their body, in their souls. It's all connected, guys, okay? So you can't separate one from the other. Megan, your story about your mental health struggles and how you're overcoming it, my dear, is inspirational. And you are, I will say again, you are a warrior princess. And I just want to say congratulations on the work that you have done. And I want to talk about the blog. What inspired you to be so open and to just share like I did with my first one? I just let it rip. You just shared.
I think just after a whole life of nobody ever talking about their mental health hurdles that they've gone through, everybody has something, but nobody wants to talk about it. And I've had just about enough of it, so I'm done.
You get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right?
Yeah, and anything I can do to make someone else feel more comfortable in their own skin and their own body, just because you're not alone. Nobody's alone.
Yeah, I'm glad I found you guys because now I know I'm not alone because our stories are very, very similar. And though your blog was really short, it was packed with a lot of information and a lot of power. When reading your journey, you shared with the readers that many would say this was just the way you were made. This is just the way you were made. All 3 of us know otherwise. Right. So, what would you think? Yeah, I know that I read your blog and you've been dealing with this for quite a while. So when people would say that, professionals, I'm sure, probably, right?
Oh yeah.
Maybe friends. They look at you like you have three heads, maybe. What were your thoughts?
I guess I just started to accept it at a certain point. I would always try and hide anything I was dealing with. Even after writing the blog, people were like, wow, I had no idea. And that was in February. So.
Wow. I remember when I first started my podcast, and it took me a year to do it. I knew I was supposed to do it in 2021 in January, and I dragged my feet, right? But I started going in search of books to really be able to understand my trauma, because I found out from a dream, right? And why I was acting the way that I acted out for so long. And it made sense. Oprah Winfrey and Bruce D. Perry, MD, who is a neuroscientist as well, wrote a book that said, what happened to you, right? And that struck me. I was like, what? Yeah, that's what people should be asking, what happened to you? So could you give us just a little bit, if you would like to share so kindly, where do you think, you said you just remember it always being there. Was there something that started it? Because usually it is something.
Like you said, from what I can remember, it's always been a part of my life. And I didn't really put a lot of things together until later on the road when I met Anton. And we went through this whole journey together. And between being adopted, nothing really bad happened to me there, but that's just a pretty traumatic experience for anybody to be taken out of your family and brought into another one. And in my case, it was a great situation, but it still impacted me a lot. But I always hid it, so no one ever knew.
Yeah, we're good at hiding, right? Your trauma was something you tried to keep undercover. It was right in alignment with where I was going there. So, how did that work out for you?
It did not work.
Yeah,
Not work at all.
yeah, yeah. And I think at times it may have caused more discomfort and more pain because you had to hide it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my experience too, is trying to cover it when you're around people and situations, and it just, when you leave out of there, you feel like you just want to pass out, right? Or
Yep.
go hide under a rock or something. I want to read an excerpt from the blog post that you authored, if I have your permission to do so. I want to take a deep dive here, okay? Because it's just packed. You're a very good writer, by the way, and I really enjoyed that. You shared that anxiety and the panic attacks were really crippling. Gosh, can I identify with that? What you wrote, just a portion of it, is that I couldn't understand why I felt the way I did and interpreted it as general numbness, both physically, emotionally. I was convinced I needed to starve myself to feel hunger or hurt myself to feel pain. I didn't know it at the time, but the adrenaline in my body was being in fight or flight at all times and made me unaware of my own body's needs, even took my breath away from me. I never could fall asleep fast or even stay asleep for more than a couple of hours. Wow. Powerful and vulnerable. Yeah. So, is there anything you want to say about that? I just really felt moved to read that because it's just power packed with how you were feeling there and being able to express it so openly.
I don't think there's really any words you can put it in that will show a clear picture of what anyone experiences. We all have our different manifestations of anxiety, but I feel pretty confident in saying the same for everyone when it feels like that's the end, or this is the worst thing you could be experiencing. So that's kind of what I tried to capture, but it ended up being crippling. It took everything away from me for a period of time.
Well, let me just tell you that you are back together again. Because you are sitting and you are And I'm sure there was a time that you could not even do this, even imagine writing,
Oh,
let alone sit here on a live Zoom podcast and talk like you are. So, um, wow, I am just blown away, and I cannot wait to find out what steps were taken to get you back on track to where you feel you don't have to hold your breath anymore. And you don't have that numbness inside of your body. And we want a lot of the other listeners that are suffering the way that you did. If any of that excerpt that I read, you're going through, any of the listeners or anyone that's viewing this YouTube, she's your poster child. Okay, that you can definitely be healed from this. So yes, we answered the question. You can be healed because look at Megan. So I want to talk to Anton. Okay. Anton, you were there seeing all of this and journeying through all of this to get her back to healing and back to wholeness. And a lot of what I didn't read, you guys need to take time to read so you can see where Megan truly was, and how of a miracle and a blessing that she found answers from Anton. To get her life back, to recapture her life so she could live life and not just survive through it. So tell me a little bit about, what steps you took, when you met her, right? Second date, I believe, right? You were saying about the posture and your technique and your new business, and
So
we have a
romantic.
lot to unpack here.
Romantic. Hey, I really like you. By the way, by the way, not ideal, but what can I say?
It worked.
So, posture is a complicated topic. I'll try to cover it as fast as I can. Posture is what most people think of as if I sit up straight and I pull my shoulders back and I put my head up, I'm in good posture. Okay? So we've been told for a really long time. Now, most people will put themselves in that position and start to hurt, and their neck will start to hurt, right? Or they'll tire and they'll say, "Oh, I just can't sustain that." And they'll go,
me. That's me.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's everyone I've ever worked with. It's unsustainable to hold this. But the question is why? Why can't I hold this position that you look at, someone else, maybe an athlete, right? And you look at them and they're standing so perfectly straight up and tall, and you're like, well, I want to do that. So with all my clients, I never asked her to stand up straight. I never asked her to pull her shoulders back. I never asked her to put her head up. Yeah, your face is about what I see quite a bit. A lot of clients will come to me for postural advice, and we do nothing resembling anything they understand as posture, and they say, well, how is this going to help me? And we get through the first couple of sequences, and they stand up, and I say, well, go look in the mirror, and I say, what's your posture look like? And they're like, I'm great. Why am I standing up straight? I have no idea why I'm standing up straight. Because posture is actually a reflection of what muscles are actually firing. From a neurological standpoint, what is automatically firing for you?
Okay, explain firing again. What is firing?
Sure. So we have active activation, which is I'm flexing my arm and flexing my bicep. But we have like a passive activation, which is what is holding me upright. Because remember, the spine only holds about 20 pounds or so of weight. Not your spine holding you up. Actually, right, all of your muscles and fascia and all these things that hold us upright. So if some of these muscles start to fail, they become weak, or we have a trauma where the brain can't identify that muscle anymore, which is another complicated series of questions that we'll go through this. Then what happens is that your brain starts to rely on other muscles to do the same job.
Wow.
For example, let's say that you're sitting and your left back is bothering, left side of your back. Right? Well, 99% of the time, and you experience this yourself, I talked to you about this, after you reactivated some of your core muscles and just got them to be a little bit more passively active, where'd your back pain go? So then it really begs the question, well, what is it? What is back pain? Right? And it's another complicated question. But what I did with Megan was I got her brain to start being able to identify and fire all these different muscles of her core, her obliques, and all this, so that it becomes so passive, it's so much part of your autonomic nervous system, the automatic things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it. You just sit up straight.
That's what I want. Like I said, if I can just, I don't have to think about it. Just like you said, if you're trying, it's just a technique that you use, right? To be able for it to do it automatically on its own. Because her posture, look at her. I'm jealous. I want posture like that.
And the brain is a brain of patterns.
Wow.
Everything is based on repetition. Everything. Trauma patterns, physical patterns, muscle patterns, habits, all of these things, all neuro, all up here.
That makes sense.
So when I'm reprogramming, helping people reprogram, it's about repetition. Repetition. It's not about the strength of the muscles, although that is important. But it's more about, can they stay active? Can the brain keep them active? Can we reinsert them into that neural web where it should be, right? And then when that occurs, a lot of people that don't have the same problems anymore, myself included.
Wow. So tell me, you went through, Megan's story is an emotional, but it's also physical, right? Because they both are in alignment, one with the other. One is affected, one affects the other. Yours was physical, though. And I want to know, because that's how you went about morphing into the expert that you've become, right? It wasn't anything you were looking to do, because you were an athlete, am I right?
Yep.
And then you had some injuries that occurred. And then finish. What else happened? And then tell me.
Car accident at 23, severe concussion. I was rear-ended on the freeway. Doctors diagnosed me with degenerative disc disease, SI joint damage. They took a look at MRIs. They said, you have the back of an 85-year-old man. You'll be in a wheelchair in 2 years.
How old were you at that time?
Or I was 23 at the time, and then they said by 25 I'll be in a wheelchair.
So what you went through was physical trauma.
Yeah.
So there's emotional trauma, guys. Listen. There's emotional trauma, right? But there's also physical trauma, back pain, knee pain. Go on, Doc. I'm going to call you doctor.
When that doctor told me you'll be in a wheelchair in 2 years, that became emotional trauma.
That became emotional trauma, so it tied in. Yes.
That moment. And I'll go into this later, but right then and there, I can identify it now. I didn't know what I was looking for back then. I did not feel safe anymore. Right there. In my own body. My own body was not safe anymore. And it's split. It's hard to get that back. Hard to get that back. That's a piece of it. Just because it starts as physical doesn't mean it can transform into emotional trauma. I just had to point that out.
Very, very, very good. That needed to be said, because that's powerful. So, you were on meds? Are you on medicine? You didn't take medicine?
I refused every pain script given to me.
Wow.
I was offered 6-month pain scripts. I was told, take this, it'll help. I said no. I'd heard enough. I'd heard enough about where that road would take me, and I knew instinctively, even at that early age, I might never escape that.
The side effects, right. Yeah. And becoming addicted to it as well. That's the trauma part, right? And losing total essence of who you are. So how did you start the journey of doing your own research and developing the program that has changed Megan's life, that I know a lot of the listeners are going to be making contact with you after this, because they're going to want the same posture. They're going to want the same emotional soundness of mind and peace. So tell me how you developed your program. Give me the name of it, the meaning of it, all of that good stuff.
So the name of my company is Atheq, ATHEQ, and the work is called regenerative reconditioning. Regenerative reconditioning, and both for the mind and for the body. Two different people, and they go in tandem. Yeah.
Wow. And you have blogs that talk about this on your website, which is I've been reading the blogs for the last 2 weeks just to have clear understanding. I can't get enough of it. I'm like, I'm going to understand this because it's going to apply to me. It does apply to me. So what else would you like to share? Because I really want to do some exercises too, if we can, if you don't mind doing that, so we could see what sort of takes place a little bit.
No problem. So you asked me the question of how did this thing get built? I think it's a great question. So it started off as going to chiropractors, right? To help me stomach, right? With some really great ones. I went to massage therapist, helped me stomach, right? Which was great. I went to osteopaths. I got some help, right? I got some help. Right. I tried everything. I tried auricular acupuncture. I tried it. I read Dr. Sarno's Healing Back Pain. I got book. I tried that. All things help. But I could never be out of pain. Never be totally out of pain. Or I would get myself kind of okay enough to start exercising, to try to get strong, and then right back. One little tiny movement, one tiny, pick a 10-pound weight just a little bit wrong, or not even wrong, just picking it up and right back. 2-3 weeks of that.
So it was just a Band-Aid. It wasn't really, it didn't stay, is what you're telling me.
For me, it was
it was just a Band-Aid.
Searching and researching for another answer because I couldn't find it, right? And so I started devoting every ounce of my life to reading, online, YouTube, you name it, I watched it. You name it, I tried it. I'm trying crazy stretches. I'm trying, different little workouts. I'm, reading articles, innocuous blogs, going on, Reddit, reading this, looking up, the top experts in every field, Dr. Stuart McGill, and certain things helped a little bit. Never really get to the root of the problem. And I'm going to tell you when the exact moment when my mentality and my thinking changed. I was trying to do an exercise that I had been directed to do, that this would help my back. Okay. I'm going into a glute bridge. And for your listeners that don't understand what that is where you're on your back and you try to push your hips up into the air, and your glute or your butt muscle would do that action. I would do that over and over and over again. And I would only feel my back. And it would hurt. And it would ache. And it would sore. But I was told, hey, that's what you do. I just happened to one day, after lighting my back on fire, really, put my hand on the muscles of my glute. I couldn't understand why they were completely gone. Completely gone. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Aren't these the muscles that I'm using?
Yeah, because you're going up and it's supposed to tighten your buttocks, right?
So my brain was saying, hey, yeah, your glutes are working. That's glute, right? And I put my hands there. No, they're doing nothing. Zero. That's when it started to click. I said, okay, there's something I missed completely. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning. And that was about 8 years ago.
Wow, something like that. Okay, so you were still in pain at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what happened to bring about where you're painless now? And you don't have to go through the whole thing, because I think this is going to have to be a 2-part series or something. But
you keep talking, and it's hard to get me to shut up. So.
I already know, so that's why I'm I already know from our first conversation on our Zoom. I said I'm going to have to reel him in. I got to have questions. But tell me, because now you're pain free. 8 years later, you're pain free. You're not. So the research that you did has alleviated the pain, and it's given your life back, and it's given Megan's life back. So just give me a couple of things that you did, and then I really want to talk about the breathing. I want to do some breathing exercise and how that sort of got implemented into what you're doing. Is there any way that you can give me a short?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So self-experiment.
Look, your fiance knows you quite well, as she should.
Self-experimentation, constant, never-ending self-experimentation to try to find what would create a shift and a change to what was going on with my back. Some things made it worse. Some things made it way worse for weeks at a time. The real turning point, I would say, the next turning point was when I innocuously, randomly was laying in bed one night, still having back pain, and decided to rub and kind of just tap an area that felt kind of soft of my abdominals and my oblique for probably, I've lost track of time, probably at least 30, 45 minutes. So nothing. Woke up in the morning, felt like I had a baseball bat taken to that area. That's what sore was. And I said, well, that's something. That's good. I never felt like that my entire life. Not any workout have I ever felt that. That got the gears turning. The other huge thing was I was laying on my back one time, and we're all told that we had a certain amount of a gap in between our low back, right? I had about an inch and a half to 2 of what we can call extension underneath my lumbar or low spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I'm laying there watching TV, I realized about 10 minutes later that I was like about half inch down.
Wow.
Wait, I thought that was my spine. That's the position my spine's in. Why did it change?
Yes.
That also got me thinking. So all these things that I would experience in doing this self-experimentation ended up becoming the root of the base of the methodology of the whole program. And I've applied this same methodology to every single part of the body, whether it's ankle.
Okay, so this is what I also did is I went on your website,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at different. I've got so many notes here, guys. I looked at a lot of different stuff, testimonials. That intrigued me. Those testimonials, listeners, let me just tell you, you have got to call the man. You've got to call Anton. For one reason, Megan, you've got to read her blog. I cannot read all that tonight. So you need to take it upon yourself I'll have all the information that you need about the link. You need to read that because she's not telling it all. And there's some stuff in there that if you compare to what the blog is and seeing her now, if you're just listening, you need to go to my YouTube page and you need to see Megan and compare that to her blog, where she was and where she is now. It's like night and day. Anton, where he was, incapacitated, total pain, and where he is now. You also need to go on his website and you need to look at the testimonials. I did that today before coming on because I thought it was really, really important, and it goes on and on and on. I didn't see any it goes on and on and on, right? I didn't see any negative statements. All I heard and saw was praise reports. People that's been in pain for 30, 25 years. Back pain, back trauma. Let me say that right. Back trauma, neck trauma. I'm going to do a commercial for you, Anton. knee trauma, right? All of those things are trauma. You need to read it because I know people go through back pain and they think that that's just how their life is going to be. Medication has side effects, just like, I'm sorry, but look at the commercials. That's why they're so beautiful. So you get distracted by it. You don't hear about the side effects. At least that's what I think. Not to say they do not play a part. They do. Okay, so I'm not telling you to get off your medication, all right, at all. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you need to be open to another alternative. Seeking ye shall find, knocking the door shall be open. You need to read this, all right? Now, the one thing I wanted to, or read the testimonials and just check out his page just in general, because if you're an athlete, if you're going through emotional trauma, they all tie in together. If you're an athlete, it doesn't matter what age you are, right? I really checked your blog. You know, I really checked your website. I know what I'm talking about, right? So if any age, if you got kids that's going through pain, and I know he's located in Portland, but he can do live Zooms and things like that, or you can fly out if you got the money to do so. All right. But I really want you to do a breathing exercise, because what I did is I pulled from, there's many blog posts, and I have them down here. Let's see. To save state, how the brain reboots. Okay, you need to read that. The phenomena of remapping, that really intrigued me a great deal. And the central nervous system. All right. So he's talking about, I want to talk about these deep breaths. Me being a vocal coach, I know about breathing and breathing deeply and using the diaphragm and all of that stuff. But we take really shallow breaths, is what I found out. So I have been consciously, since reading this, taking. So explain this, and then I would really like to do an exercise, because Megan, this helped you. Is that right? Is this something that you use now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Whenever you go through panic attacks or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you go through them anymore.
I do. It still comes up, but what Anton's work has given me is the ability to sit there and look at, I'm experiencing anxiety, not I'm going to die or whatever else my brain is telling me at the time. And just being able to use the breathing and bring myself back down.
See, I want that. So can we do a demonstration, or how would you like to carry this on?
Yeah, sure. So one quick thing I wanted to mention. So I talked about the physical stuff a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people can say, okay, that's great. That's great that you can do that. Cool. But how does that relate to my emotional trauma or the trauma that I'm experiencing, anxiety? Right? So let me explain how I got there. So I'm working with clients in an actual chiropractic office because unfortunately one of my mentors, Dr. Whitmire, ended up having a stroke. We no longer able to work together anymore, but he was really his. I was actually a patient of his many years back. I came back to him later and showed him some of the work I was doing. He's like, I want to see it all. Show me what you're doing. So he referred a lot of the patients to me, and we had a really great relationship. And during that time, right, I would be working with clients, and some of them we get the muscles to refire and reactivate and resequence and these things with organs securing these concepts, basically getting the brain to recognize the area again, getting it passively fire again. We talked about earlier. And it'd be great. They walk out, never hear from them again. Great. No pain, I'm great. Other people have clients come back and they say they had a really stressful week, and it's like, oh, yeah, great. They lay down and we can start doing the work. And all of the patterns that we've worked on for reset. All of them.
Wow.
Over and over and over again, to the point where I say this is not one person, this is not two people, this is not an outlier. This is a phenomenon.
This is a what?
It's a phenomenon. It's actually
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, most definitely.
So what I realized was that there was some type of neurological involvement having to do with anxiety and stress and the emotional state that was resetting muscular states.
I'm going to be like that dog that goes like this.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example from a client. Wow. Okay. As long as her abdominals stay online, as in she can flex them and fire them without feeling other things compensating, there's no back. Zero. Great. You can reactivate all that stuff. The second I have her think of something within her anxiety, half of them shut off. And I mean where she can't feel them flex anymore. pattern. I started identifying that pattern and understanding that the state of the limbic system, the safe, unsafe thing, we could talk about more about that, was such a massive component in muscular activation for people with trauma, and that when you could get those systems back online, it started addressing the limbic state itself.
Wow. So, Megan, when you apply the technique breathing, and I'm sure there's probably other things when because there are triggers, it will happen, but at least you have the tools now. You won't sink, right? So, does it help you immediately?
Yeah, it helps immediately. It also helps with just life in general. Like we spoke a little bit about earlier, I never really slept longer than a couple hours.
Yes.
And out in my sleep, I was taking really shallow breaths, just being conscious about everything I do, all the muscles I use to keep myself upright. And just the breathing is important in every single aspect, whether you're having an emergency or not.
Yes. Yes, it's life. Being able to breathe and being able to breathe effectively. Please go on, Anton.
One quick thing just about that phenomenon, once again, for your listeners. When she was going through this part that she doesn't remember about the deepest levels of trauma and terror that I watched her under, I knew that when she was having a full-on panic episode, she couldn't feel any of her muscles.
Wow.
As soon as she could feel them again, she went out of the stage.
Okay, I'm making an appointment tomorrow. Move everybody else out off of your calendar. Fit me in. Wow, that's awesome.
The link between our muscular, physical body, right, and our limbic, safe, unsafe, is so intertwined. It's hard, so infinitely more intertwined than I think the people that really believe in body mind connectivity.
Okay, we are losing our volume again, but we're going to keep this going because it's been good. It's been good so far. So listeners, when you're doing Zooms and things like that, everybody's on. So you all have gotten a lot of information, but we're still going to do this exercise because I think it's important for them to experience it, dealing with breathing, because we take shallow breaths as human beings. And I tell my students that all the time. So take us through the breathing treatment that you would show Megan, or Megan take us, or however you guys want to do this.
Looking at me. Okay. So it's actually more than what people think breathing is, at least for me, for what I do with my clients. So breathing should create activation. I mean, activation, I just need movement in your oblique muscles, so your side abdominal muscles, as well as all of your abdominal muscles from the top of your sternum all the way down to where those muscles attach, right? The pelvis. So if there's areas that don't move when you breathe, your brain has forgotten those muscles exist. So you actually may not be able to get a full breath because your brain can't even access the muscle to turn on that part.
So how do you turn it on?
Well, that's part of the work, right? I have to make sure that the area is sequenced properly, and that you feel the area, you can even flex the area. I'll give you an example. If you put your hand, remember on that oblique muscle that I talked to you about? Put your hand right on it, take a big deep breath in through your nose, and then exhale through your mouth. You feel that muscle move at all. In the breath.
No.
Now I want you to test the other side. Does the other one make sense? In through your nose. Does that one make sense?
Yes.
Which side do you have back pain on?
My right side.
Which side's more active? Which oblique is more active?
It's the left side.
So your muscle, that muscle that isn't moving, in your breath, your brain can't even find that muscle.
push into it and gently flex that leftover. So you feel it. Okay. Now take a breath.
Say again.
Now take a breath. Does the muscle move more even after it's flexed?
Yes.
Your brain said, "Oh, that's where it is."
Wow.
So breathing is way different in the way that I teach it. I have to make sure mechanically you can breathe.
Right.
Your brain can access all of these muscles to allow these areas to move.
Okay. So this is really, really critical because we're talking about breathing. It's very, very critical. And in order to live, your heart's got to be beating and your breath has got to be working, going through, circulating through your body. So guys, this is nothing to play with. It is something that could be life altering for you, for your trauma, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional. Whew. Okay.
Let me give your listeners something that they can do.
Please.
So we're not going to include any of the messaging pieces or anything that may potentially cause a trigger for someone. But regardless of that, there are people out there that even the act of deep breathing can create panic, anxiety, and be the trigger itself. That is an entirely different conversation as to why that occurs, and I'm happy to go into that. But I just want to warn people, if you deal with a lot of that, if you deal with anxiety, you deal with mental health problems, you try to deep breathe, and you feel like it's creating panic, there's a particular reason for it. And if you go into it more and more and more, you may give yourself a panic attack. So all of this stuff, right, is a step-by-step process. It's very hard for me just to say, just keep breathing, you'll be okay. Right? It's a very individual process. But if it feels okay to take these first couple breaths, then I encourage people to give this a try. You're going to start with just 5 deep breaths. So you're going to put your hand right below your navel or your belly button. And you're going to go ahead and inhale through your nose gently. We're not belly breathing. Gently. Feeling a gentle expansion of those muscles. And then you're going to exhale and feel those muscles contract. And you're going to find that rhythm of breathing through the body. Not just breathing, you're actually feeling your body breathe.
So that's regaining the feel of your body, that it's there.
Part
That's
of it.
what's happening.
It's part of it, absolutely.
Part of it. And like you were saying, it shuts down that, I mean, I know there's other steps. It shuts down that fight and flight.
It can. So by nature of what deep breathing does, it should push you closer to parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest.
Yes.
However, for some people that have trauma, as they get closer to parasympathetic, their brain, their deep animal limbic system of the brain will fight that shift.
Mm-hmm.
So breathe, suddenly you'll be breathing, and suddenly there's a grocery list. Or I forgot to take the groceries out. I forgot to take the garbage down the street. Or I have health problems. Some things will pop into your head. Or you may get back pain. Or you may have a migraine that pops up. There's so many different guarding patterns
That have to be
Yes, exactly.
moved, is it, right? So that's where the process is.
Yes, people need to understand that just because you can't do that now doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that your brain, in its effort to try to keep you safe and cope from the trauma, has blocked that out.
Wow.
To go into the parasympathetic is to relax.
Yes.
When you've been dealing with fight or flight for a long time, or if you've had severe trauma, your brain associates relaxation. Because if you relax, you are vulnerable.
Well, let me just say this, and we're going to close this out because we could go on and on and on. And I know we've gone over an hour, but I know the listeners are enjoying it, and thank you for breaking it down in layman's terms, so we can understand the limbic system and the fight or flight and the parasympathetic, right? And how that, and the central nervous system that plays a critical part, and how the muscles play a critical part, and how all that is just entwined. I just want to leave by saying, Megan, I've been observing you, and you have so much ease and so much peace when you're sitting there, and it just radiates off of the screen. And I know there's a lot of people that wish that they have what you worked to get, and it did take work. It's just not something that happened overnight. Just like Anton saying, you know, he can give us all this stuff, but it is not going to be something that's just going to change overnight. Everyone's different. Everyone's trauma is different. And people have walls from the elliptic system. I'm understanding this now that we've talked about it, what all this is meaning. So I want to thank you both so much for coming on and just being so open and so raw and having such a heart and such a compassion for people. And I'm just so blessed to have met you. And I know that you're going to help a lot of people. You're already doing it. And it's my hope and it's my prayer that if anyone wants to contact Megan for her to share her story, because I really believe this is not going to be your first time. I think it's just the introduction to some other opportunities that are going to be open for you. That will be my prayer for you, because stories change lives, because people think that they're alone, and they really aren't alone. There's billions of people here feeling the same exact way that you and I have felt, and we're still doing the work, right? And the trauma might not move, but at least we'll have more control over it, right? It won't have control over us. Anton, the work you're doing, exquisite. Thank you so much for, I don't want to thank God for what you went through with that, right? But all things work together for the good. So with you going through that, unbeknownst to you, you were set on a journey and a path to be able to help not just thousands, but I'm just going to believe millions of people that are going to be touched by the research that you did. And for you saying, no, I'm not taking medication. I'm going to figure this thing out myself. And that's the road less traveled, right? That a lot of people don't want to travel on, but you were one that was called to do this. So if anyone wants to get in contact with Anton or with Megan, I will have the information available for you to be able to reach out to them. And I would say you need to go and look at the blog. You need to read, and you need to make contact. If you're going through back pain, knee pain, any type of discomfort, it can be addressed through, if you're ready to do the work like anything else. It just is not going to happen overnight. But if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, yeah, we've got the answer for you right here.